Welcome to a walkthrough of Worksheet 1. Today we're going to be learning about independent and dependent variables, levels of measurement for each variable, and practicing some math skills. So the first thing we're going to do on the worksheet is read through word problems, determine our independent and dependent variables, then determine the level of measurement for each. On the first page, reading through each of the word problems, look in the first sentence and the last sentence to determine what our variables are. For example 1, if we read through our first sentence and last sentence, I'll highlight our last sentence to show you the example. Last sentence, what statistical procedure would one apply to determine if there is a significant difference between religious affiliation with respect to seatbelt use? Using that last sentence, determine the two things that we're measuring, the two things that we're comparing. So we know we're determining a significant difference, but a difference between what? So reviewing the sentence, our two variables, we have between religious affiliation, and we have with respect to seatbelt usage. So our variables are religious affiliations and seatbelt usage. Now that we've determined our variables, it's time to determine which is independent and which is dependent. In regards to religious affiliation and seatbelt usage, independent is cause and dependent is effect. So are we looking at whether religious affiliation influences seatbelt usage or whether seatbelt usage influences religious affiliation? Logically, we're looking at how religious affiliation impacts seatbelt use. So our independent variable would be religious affiliation, and our dependent variable would be seatbelt use. Now that we've determined which is our independent variable and which is our dependent variable, the next step is to determine the level of measurement for each. So let's start with our independent variable of religious affiliation. Level of measurement means nominal, ordinal, or interval ratio. With religious affiliation, there is no better or worse answer. There is no religion that's better or worse than any other. None is more, none is less. It simply serves to categorize. So religious affiliation would be an example of a level of measurement that is nominal. Next, let's determine the level of measurement for our dependent variable of seatbelt use. If we review in our word problem, we'll see that seatbelt use is measured all the time, sometimes, rarely, or never. This is not nominal. Those categories have to go in order. All the time is always more than sometimes. Sometimes is always more than rarely. Rarely is always more than never. However, there's not that equal distance between each of the answers. The answers are somewhat subjective. So if a variable is measured with categories that go in order but don't have equal distance or can be somewhat subjective, then that variable is measured at an ordinal level of measurement. For numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5, go through, review your first and last sentences, determine your two variables, decide which is the independent variable and which is the dependent variable. Then note the level of measurement for each variable, nominal, ordinal, or interval ratio. On page 2 of our worksheet is some basic math equations. These are designed to make sure that you understand different symbols and different ways of asking the same question. So for each of these, go through, answer the calculation as asked. If you get stuck, please reach out to your instructor and ask for assistance.